Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to BSV TV. I'm your host Satoshi, and on this show we'll be defending the one and only, truly genuine Bitcoin. The Bitcoin that Satoshi Nakamoto designed in his white paper as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system for the world. Let's get the disclaimers out of the way. So all the statements that you hear on this show are opinion and must only ever be taken as opinion. They are never to be taken as any form of advice, family, financial, sexual or otherwise. And on that note, let's sit back, relax, have some fun and enjoy the show. Get paid for your content in Bitcoin and set your own fee on Streamanity.
Yeah, I'm not surprised I wasn't asked why I'm convinced Craig is Satoshi. I posted on Reddit. He signed in my presence using the private key from block number one, the very first mined Bitcoin block. On a computer that I'm convinced had not been tampered with, on software I'm convinced that had not been tampered with, a message of my choosing.
At InChain, we've just funded a number of universities doing, so far, a test up to 1 gigabyte because it validates what we've already done independently. We've tested up to 380 gigabyte blocks. We've tested 1 million transactions a second and transaction sizes up to 20 megabytes. Super complex scripts. Basically ones that can run operating systems. That's basically all of global commerce times about 50. On top of that, we can have complex scripts. On top of that, we can scale each of those transactions 1,000 times, which effectively means about 1 billion transactions per second, which means we can then have all derivatives, all complex trades. That means high frequency trading. It means everything that happens globally.
Is the market that effectively BSV is going for, is that global e-commerce, which is currently valued at $29 trillion?
No, that's too small.
Buy and sell Bitcoin instantly at bsvgravity.com. And you can now book and pay for your winter holiday at skibsv.com. Good afternoon everyone, just looking at the statistics, it looks like we are live and everything is on fire. This is looking good. Just a quick show today, let's go over a few things, but first of all let's have a quick look at the numbers. So the Australian crypto exchange, CoinSpot, which is an Australian exchange, has had to delist some privacy coins due to regulatory updates from industry service providers. Just people, I mean, I know this is Eli, I've got a lot of respect for Eli, but they're trying to welcome Roger Ver back. And I'm just like, look, his political philosophy of dictatorship and centralizing control of money to fulfill his own political agenda is nothing like Bitcoin or anyone who supports it. So this was my response. Yeah, so Sapun, I say, yeah, Roger Ver is not a Bitcoiner. His anarcho, crony capitalist, fascist dictator ideologies do not fit Bitcoin. They don't. He's trying to centralize control of it. I wrote this open letter to the Numpties. Now this was kind of like a test for them because if they read it to the bottom, they would realize that I was actually wishing them well. So if they don't actually realise that I'm trying to help them and, they don't read it at all, they really are a bunch of numpties. What can I say? But this was by far probably the most concise literature that I have produced because I was trying to explain it to them as simply as possible that describes Bitcoin as simply as possible. So I'm just going to read out and see how it sounds. So I said, an open letter to the Numpties. What you need to know and haven't figured out yet. Dear Numpties, you are lucky to have TK on your show because without him you really would be a bunch of Numpties. So that was me like starting off on a negative just to see if they'll read it. I said, I do listen to your show because TK's on it. Rub it in. You seem like a group of nice enough guys, which is why I cringe when I hear you missing the mark about Bitcoin. Especially Steve P, because he appears to genuinely do a lot of thinking in the bath. He says that's where he does a lot of thinking. However, I suggest he change the bath salts he uses because they are throwing his thoughts off track. That's because I've seen him in an interview, going on about how he didn't like Craig Wright and how he thought Craig was going to steal Satoshi's Bitcoins. Absolutely off his rocker. That must be the bath salts. This letter is mostly inspired to help him get back on track. I hope it helps all of you, as it's written in a way to break down the fundamentals of Bitcoin for all who read it. And like literally, there is nobody writing about Bitcoin in this way. Like literally, no one explaining it like this, because this is not written anywhere. This is literally me using all my experience in my life, pulling from business, finance, economics, psychology, the lot, realizing what Craig has produced here. And so this is how I've explained it for people. So I said the development of Bitcoin can be divided into two parts or phases, the first of which has just been completed. Bitcoin is man-made and has a central starting point at the inception of the network, which was on the 3rd of January 2009. It's this starting point that discredits all cryptocurrencies because it is the central point of authority, control, and influence. Money that has any form of central authority or control or influence is utterly worthless as money, which is why an extensive amount of time is required to dilute it. This is the first phase of Bitcoin that has just been completed. Satoshi diluted the starting point as much as possible in order to provide it with as much credibility as possible. He did this by first releasing the Bitcoin white paper on the 31st of October 2008, 2 months prior to starting the network. This was to provide a reasonable amount of time for the network to be started by someone else. After 2 months and 4 days, having provided a reasonable amount of time to others, he then started the network himself under a pseudonym. This pseudonym diluted the inception of the network down into two parts, the author as being Japanese and the white paper being in English. This implied that the author, distancing himself, was as far away from the release of the Bitcoin white paper as possible in a country that gave him as much credibility as possible, being highly developed, technologically advanced, and politically neutral. It also provided a large enough population and a language barrier to assist with his identity remaining a mystery for a long enough period of time to let the Bitcoin network grow without the central point of authority, control, or influence. It's this neutral growth that is unique to the Bitcoin network, that neither the USA or Chinese government can replicate overnight. It provides credibility and gives Bitcoin its fundamental value over any and all other networks. I mean, that is absolutely crucial. Absolutely crucial. Satoshi Nakamoto, CSW, created the software as open source so that it was replicatable and could be altered. To ensure against changes to the protocol, the Tulip Trust was created and contained 1,100,111 Bitcoin with the intention to wipe out all coins or chains that had been created with an alternative protocol during this time of decentralization/dilution of the centralized starting point. The time between the release of the white paper on the 31st of October 2008 and the stipulated return of the Tulip Trust to Craig Wright on the 1st of January 2020 is 11 years and 2 months. It's this phase of the Bitcoin project that is dedicated to the dilution and decentralization of the starting point, which is known as the Tulip period. Decentralization is a dynamic concept in comparison to centralization, which is a static state. This dynamic concept requires a number of considerations, and these are the important bits that I sort of tried to consolidate. So I said, first, the chain of signatures was designed to decentralize control of the network by holding all creators, developers, and users of the network to account, so that no one would be able to do anything on the system that no one else would know about. This is why all anonymous systems such as BCH, Monero, and Zcash, etc. have no value as money because anonymity centralizes control. And then I've linked to another article there about how it's accountability, not anonymity, that protects us. Secondly, the protocol was designed to be set in stone so that anyone and everyone could build upon it without the need for permission, so a permissionless network. Third, the network was designed to scale for the entire market so that any and all could use it. If a network cannot scale or work for everyone, it becomes a closed market and is of no use to anyone because an alternative system would have to be found. Scaling must be infinite, because if new markets are not available, then miners have nothing to compete for. They will then start taking market share off one another and the system starts to centralize. 4. Competition. There must be competition between those who maintain the system, or else collusion is the alternative, which creates a centralized system and money with no value. This is why other consensus algorithms, proof of stake, delegated proof of stake, pre-mined, hashgraph, Tangle, and Lightning Network have no value as monetary systems. A fifth, a fixed supply is absolutely essential for decentralization and neutrality. Otherwise, it can simply be manipulated by a centralized authority. And this was the question that George Gilder put to Craig. He said, why didn't you fix the price instead of fixing the supply? Well, if he hadn't fixed the supply would just simply be manipulated by a centralized authority. It's the having the fixed supply that is part of this decentralization process. It is absolutely essential. Sixth, a final consideration for decentralization is the size and strength of the network. If the network is not large enough or strong enough to withstand or prevent a large centralized power from gaining or taking control of it, then can it be considered as decentralized? This is why decentralization is a concept, as it cannot be truly defined. The second era of Bitcoin in which we all now find ourselves is the creation of value. Value is derived from the development of the network through its speed, cost, and scale, which is explained here. And you can see that, which is my Medium article titled Bitcoin, Speed, Cost, and Scale. I could go on, but I'm writing a book with all this information in it anyway. I hope you enjoyed this and are able to nail it on your show. All the best, Satoshi. P.S. Craig already has Satoshi's Bitcoin because Craig Wright is Satoshi. So that was just, trying to tell Steve, look, Steve, Craig is Satoshi. He hasn't got it. He's trying to think of any and every excuse to try and portray Craig as fake Toshi. Oh, there's got to be someone else that I don't like. No, mate, afraid not. It was Craig. He created it. And look at that, I've got 11 claps on there. Oh, that's actually really good for a Medium article. So it shows that people are reading it. So chuffed to bits with that. That's all I've got to say today, people. So I hope you enjoyed the show. I've got my phone with me. So everybody, put your Handcash handles and paymails in the chat box. Let's do this. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And as ever, be aware, take care, stay safe out there. Joy given. See everybody soon.